Good morning, everybody. It is Thursday, February 16th. It's 8:31. And this is the Board of Education. Sorry. So we'll do it again. Good morning, everybody. Today's Thursday, February 16th. It's 8:30 a.m. We're at the Board of Education Finance Subcommittee for our monthly review on this fine spring day. So go ahead, Rich, if you could start with the review of the 2023 January financial report.
Sure. So this is the financial report through January. We are showing a positive balance of $700,780. The change from December is a total of $77,372. Just to highlight, this does not include what the pre-purchases that were approved at the last board meeting on Tuesday. So if we would take into account, you'll be closer to about $450,000.
I'm sorry, how much?
$450,000. That'll be reflected in the February financial report. So the changes from the prior month include $8,947 in clubs and councils at the middle school. The geography B is not currently running. We have about $4,600 in additional salary savings for the maternity leave for an assistant principal at Oxford, which was slightly extended. $2,319 in clubs and councils at Oxford for an enrichment club that's not running. Excess cost looks like it'll be about $4,620 more than the previous month. We did include in the packet the estimated revenues from the state of Connecticut. You can see that the grant, which mirrors the forecast, is expected to come in at $2,421,580 with that 70% reimbursement rate. There is talk at the state that might change and the tiered levels could go up to potentially 85%. Which obviously would be significant help to the district, but we'll see what happens at the state level. And then $56,809 in salary savings. It's primarily due to the later anticipated start of the SSOs, which look like they'll be about April, and then a small savings in the weight room and athletics, and then groundskeepers. Overall, the general education RCs are a positive $392,512, and then the special education RCs are $308,268. And again, that's primarily related to excess cost. There are no changes in RC1. RC3, as I mentioned earlier, the main change is the change in clubs and councils with a positive balance of $8,947. There's no change in RC5 or 7. In RC8, as I mentioned earlier, the enrichment club at Oxford is not running. That's a positive balance of just over $2,300. No change in RC9 or 10. And no change in RC11. No change in RC 12, 15, 17, 18, 19, and then again, a small change in RC 24 for excess cost. We should actually receive the first balance of that payment in the next couple of weeks, which should be 75% of that $2.4 million, with the balance coming in May. No change in RC 25 or RC 26 or RC 27. It was relatively a light month in terms of changes. And then just to highlight the food service fund, we did indicate last month we expected this month to turn positive. We have turned positive by about $48,000. And we are still forecasting a positive balance at the end of the year of just under $220,000, which would bring the anticipated fund balance to about $650,000. Probably in a couple months, we'll bring some items to draw down on that fund balance in terms of repairs of equipment.
And let me just follow that one up. We also are using through our budgeting for next fiscal year. Some of those funds are going to be used for cafeteria aids.
Correct. So the plan for next fiscal year is to cover the cost of the lunch monitors at the elementary school and then the middle school with the profits from the cafeteria fund.
And just back to the items that you probably purchased, will that be this fiscal year?
That would be this fiscal
year.
Okay,
thank you. Any questions other than mine? Go ahead.
Rich, when you were talking about the potential change to the reimbursement rate, that's just for next year, not for this year, correct?
So it's unclear. There's two things that are going on. One is for next year, they're going to change. So this year, for the first time, they changed the way the reimbursement works and they tiered it by communities based on financial wealth. So the current tiering, we're at the bottom end at 70%. Mm-hmm. The proposal is to bring that to 85% for us. That would be the max cap that we could get. And so if when all districts submit their funds, there's not enough money at the state, they would proportionately reduce that reimbursement through the tiers. That would be for next year. They are talking about a potential adjustment for this year, but that remains unclear whether or not that would happen.
Do you have an expectation on when you might know?
So it depends on when the governor signs it. The bill did go through the House and pass the House. So I would think we'd have some type of idea either in March or April.
Thank you.
And
Even the professional organization, even the professional organizations really are up in the air for this year.
when you say up in the air, timing, everything up in the air, like if we were to go to 85%, which sounds like somebody's uttered those terms, what kind of impact would that be in this fiscal year?
So for
Roughly.
this fiscal year would be a couple $100,000 more than we're getting
Okay.
now. For next fiscal year, it could be in excess of $500,000.
Got it. Yeah.
The unclear part is while they might do 85%, are they going to do 85% of the whole submission, considering that the submissions might exceed the actual budget? And so then they would have to have an emergency certification bill that would have to be passed to allocate more money. So I would expect it to be maybe less for this year and then more for the following year.
It gives me a opportunity to plug your memo on how this is all calculated.
There's a lot of moving pieces.
Yes. The variables are probably in the
Yeah.
dozen range
Yes.
or something like that. So, okay. Jill, got anything? Denny, anything? Oh, you're on mute, Denny.
Just to point to that, Rich. So, I mean, for now, it looks like the only thing can happen is a positive reimbursement for us, because the floor for us is still the 70 that we budgeted for, correct?
Correct. So the state's already issued the estimated revenues based on the existing tiering, which is the 70%. So that's what was included in the packet. So really would all be additional money if anything changes.
All right, fantastic.
So I also wanted to use this as the opportunity to just briefly just highlight some of the things that you went through in the memo, in the pre-purchases. They've all in the past been called pre-buys of items that the board approved. And just very quickly, because we did it, but I think because it's a new kind of concept of what we're doing this time. Yeah, if you could just kind of quickly review your
Sure.
memo, February 13th.
Sure. So the board was interested in possible pre-purchases for the fiscal 24 budget. We did want to look at items that would potentially not cause a spike in the fiscal 25 budget if you look another year out. So we looked at items that primarily didn't affect those issues, which is really technology. If we look at replacement cycle for technology, it is in that $700,000 to $900,000 range over the next 4 to 5 years. So the board did approve pre-purchasing of some uniforms and athletics, some equipment for athletics. We really looked at like what's considered minor capital equipment, which are like auto scrubbers, speed scrubbers, some musical instruments, things like that, pottery wheels, some tech ed saws and materials like that, and then some textbooks. So the total is a little over 249,000. So the expectation is in the February report, which will be the March Finance Committee, will reflect those essentially deficits and then bring transfers forward for the board's consideration. And then at the meeting in March, if the board approves it, then the look to purchase would happen in April. And then those items that we're purchasing were pulled out of the fiscal 24 budget.
Yeah, and as you highlighted, the impact to the surplus would take it down from 700,000 roughly to 450. And you also, I think, said that the accounts that we will use to fund the pre-buy are all from the general education RCs, which are pretty much certain at this point in terms of surplus.
Correct.
Status,
So we
right?
we didn't want to touch any excess cost revenue. So we really looked at items which were primarily salary savings, which are kind of been static for a number of months. Whether it's the savings for the custodial and maintenance contract change, whether it's the maternity leave at Ox Ridge, the delayed start to the SSOs and the director of mental health. So that money's kind of just sitting there. So it's not an expectation that would change going forward.
Okay, and then the impact, we talked about the overall impact. If I do the quick math, general education RCs would go down from 392 minus 249 gets you down to about 143.
Correct. So that gives us a little bit of room in case we see small spikes and things like substitutes or overtime, or we haven't had any snow and hopefully it stays that way. But if we do have snow, that'll have a little bit of wiggle room there.
Yeah, we got a month to
Right.
to go deeper in the fiscal year too. Okay. Any questions on that, guys?
The only
Go ahead.
just financially, as was said at the board meeting, the question becomes if for next year that money becomes available, how it is handled by the board.
The excess cost.
The excess cost,
Yes, yeah, well,
That's another.
that's a good problem to. Thanks for highlighting. Everybody's job a little easier, but yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
and well, I guess, we're also expecting a special education memo from Ms. Klein over the next month or so. So, which should shed light on whether or not will be additional needs potentially. So good. I mean, we're in a very fortunate situation. So thank you. Budget transfers.
So there are no transfers for the month of January.
There we go.
Easy.
No one present here. Anybody online, Michelle?
If
For public
anyone
comment?
online would like to participate, please use the raise hand icon. There are no raised hands.
Okay, so could I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Okay, we're all good.